Now, Red Bull has been scrutinised a lot about their 2025 lineup. And after the latest news arrived from Perez's new sponsor, it looks like we're going to have a very interesting and fierce talking conversations between the drivers involved for the second seat in Red Bull. With Kit Kat standing right behind Perez as the official new partner of the sport, could we see a massive bombshell towards the youth of the team that have been raised and groomed from Red Bull's academy? And if so, how is this affecting Red Bull's future in the long term? It's safe to say that the only reason why Perez is still with the team is the money factor, and that's been proven with his recent performance. He has scored 9 times fewer points compared to his teammate Verstappen in the last 5 races, as the Dutchman has 90 points while Perez barely has 8 points throughout this stretch. This is fewer points than Alonso and Hülkenberg, as the 2-time world champion stated that he currently drives the 9th or 10th fastest car on the grid, and he still managed to score more points than the man who's driving the same car as his teammate, who's fighting in the Drivers' Championship and is likely to win that fight. This is a massive disappointment for Red Bull, who, if they were to take away all of the points that Perez has scored in the Constructors' Championship, would still be third, as he has little to no effect on where the team is moving in terms of competitiveness. However, what Perez has and the majority of the other drivers don't have is the sponsorship and the lucrative money that the Austrian team is receiving from Carlos Slim, the owner of companies like Telmex and Telcel, as well as Infinitum. According to Marca, a sponsor that was unknown not that while ago was willing to continue the support of $30 million to Red Bull if they are to keep Perez on the grid beyond 2025. And now that sponsor has been revealed, Nestle, through their brand Kit Kat. When talking about it, Marca wrote, "Those who consider Perez written off will have to wait a little longer, as he has a contract through 2025. Unless something changes at the last minute, which is not impossible at Red Bull, it looks like he's going to honour that contract." This is a massive bombshell for the remainder of the candidates, because apart from this, Perez has been given the nod to continue producing merchandise for 2025 from Christian Horner, which is the last step that you need before you're granted a deal for the next year. Obviously, it just goes to show that Red Bull, while losing around 20 million euros by being third in the Constructors' Championship after winning it for 2 consecutive years, are ready to compensate that through sponsorship money and are also ready to capitalize on the increased wind tunnel time they'll have in order to sort out the issues with the next generation of their car. But the only chance that we might see Perez out of the sport is by retirement, and according to the Mexican driver, that will happen only if he's the one who chooses to go down that road. Carlos Slim has backed the veteran to continue in the sport and admitted that he and his companies are still in talks with Red Bull as to whether or not they'll continue the collaboration. But as of now, it looks like the goal is to be with Perez and not the team, which might be one of the reasons why the Austrian team is so reluctant when it comes to giving up on the Mexican services and just promoting raw talent like Liam Lawson or Yuki Tsunoda, or even bringing someone from the outside like Colapinto. When talking about it, Slim said, "We're talking with Red Bull, we're still in talks, it's not definite, but the one we'll always intend to continue with is Checo. As far as we can always go with Perez, that's the way, without a doubt. The issue of Checo's contract is independent of the issue of sponsorship for us. It's always been like that since he signed with the team, but if there was no longer the opportunity to continue with the team, we would certainly continue with Checo." Now, there is another thing that you need to understand, and that's the financial impact that Perez has on his team in terms of crashes. He's the man who has caused the team to pay more than $5 million in repair costs, and we mustn't forget races like Monaco, where while he wasn't at fault for what happened, the car has been totaled to a maximum extreme. Right now, Red Bull have paid around $5.5 million as of September to this cause, and even Helmut Marko admitted that there were situations where they had to move the upgrades to other races or not even promote them in the first place. This, in combination with a sporting penalty, didn't help Red Bull a single bit, but that's the way that the team has chosen to go, and whether we like it or not, it's not up to us to tell. It's something for them to fix. But with Colapinto being available, and with his Argentinian roots being able to extract a lot of financial backing, as he's viewed as this great talent from both Horner and Marko, there comes a time where you cannot help but ask, what is Red Bull actually doing? Still, it's very interesting to see what Horner said about Perez right after the Mexican GP in order to avoid any backlash. And after finishing last due to massive damage to his car after touching with Lawson, Perez was bashed on social media as to why he entered into such a fierce fight with someone who's fighting to take his seat. According to Horner, while Perez is an important member of the team, so much so they bought a new chassis for him in Brazil so that he can score 1 point in the sprint race and finish outside of the points in the race itself, this is a performance-related business, as he added, Perez knows Formula One is a results-based business, and inevitably, when you're not delivering, then the spotlight is firmly on you. As a team, we need both cars scoring points. That's the nature of Formula One. We're working with him as hard as we can to try and support him. I think we've done everything that we can to support Checo, and will continue to do so. But there comes a point in time that you can only do so much. Perez seemed unbothered by any comments surrounding his departure from Red Bull from Horner or Marco. He made this clear during an interview with GQ magazine, where he said, "It's how the sport is. You have 1-2 bad races, a lot of negative talk about you and so on. But it's also something in the culture of the team as well, with Red Bull. The surrounding talk, the contract talks and so on. It's just part of the game." Despite his performance in 2024, or lack thereof, Sergio remained upbeat on where he stands in the grid against other drivers. He also hinted at ending his career with a top team and how most of the drivers want to be in his place. "I had two opportunities to change teams. When I looked at it, I thought, I really love the challenge I have at Red Bull. It's a massive challenge being Max's teammate. It's a challenge that basically trains you for all of it. So I said, I want to spend my last part of my career at the top, at the very top, where the pressure, it's full on. But ultimately, there's 90% of the grid who would have loved to have my career." Now we know that the situation with Lawson is pretty obvious. The New Zealander has no money or financial support to bring to the team, but he has raw talent that can push the team to a greater extreme and could even unlock a new level of Verstappen. Furthermore, Red Bull are relying on the Dutchman too much to stay, and he's been quite open about his future, stating that while he has a contract until 2028, even 2026 is too far away for him to lock in and just to commit to Red Bull. Therefore, Red Bull might find themselves in a spiraling situation where they won't be at the lead, they won't have a number one driver who can score points effectively, and in this situation, the money from Perez won't help at all. Tsunoda is highly unlikely to be seen as a serious candidate to replace Perez, even though he'll be doing some testing with the team after the Abu Dhabi finale. And when talking about it, Horner said, "Yuki is a member of the junior team, and the test is something that we have discussed with Honda. We gave Yuki a run up the hill at Goodwood earlier in the year. He'll test the car again at the tyre test following the conclusion of the season. It's something that's been agreed upon for quite some time. It'll be good to give him a run and get the opportunity to work with Red Bull racing engineers and see how he performs in a Red Bull racing car." Obviously, Red Bull understands that Tsunoda's relationship with Honda will always make him a threat to lead with whatever team the Japanese manufacturer is tied with, and in this case, that's Aston Martin. On top of that, Tsunoda hasn't really shown flashes of a driver who deserves to be put in a seat next to Verstappen. And with his outbursts and emotional reactions to something that requires calmness and collectiveness in general, he doesn't actually bode well for a replacement of Perez. Even though he finished higher than Lawson in Brazil, Horner has praised the Kiwi driver more than Tsunoda. As he said, "Perez is our current driver. Lawson did a super job again today, and Tsunoda as well, but Liam did particularly well considering his experience. Franco is another talent. So of course, you're always keeping an eye on the market to see how things are developing." With all this in mind, one couldn't help but wonder whether Red Bull are wasting the talents of drivers like Lawson, who finished 9th in 2 out of the 3 races in which he participated so far, and helps his team in the P6 fight in the Constructors' Championship with Haas, as well as the ones of Hadjar, who's waiting in the bushes for something to happen so that he could be promoted to Racing Bulls. Nevertheless, the team is risking a situation in which they'll be forced to keep Perez just because of the money, and if an opportunity for Verstappen arises in another team, Red Bull won't have the aces in their sleeves in order to offer someone a contract that they're deserving of. So, do you think that Perez is effectively ruining the sport by keeping himself present thanks to the sponsorships that are standing behind him? And more importantly, do you think that Red Bull endorsing this kind of behavior is actually fair play to the sport? Let us know in the comments down below.